Looks like we're officially hello and welcome to Let's Cook, which is our interactive online cooking classes run by the Refined Cook. So I'm Marlene, and I run the Refined Cook, which if it wasn't this kind of pandemic situation, my husband and I, Jeff and I, do cooking class parties. You know, it's like a multi-layer where we work with aesthetics, plating, aside from working with really good food. So I know some of you have been pretty much regular, which I am so glad. Thank you. And it's so nice to see you again. And for those of you who I'm seeing for the first time, it's great. It's always great to welcome new faces. And just a little bit, I'll talk about mission of Refined Cook is to promote healthy and gourmet, to teach healthy and gourmet cooking so that we could have a slow and sustainable lifestyle. But I think pretty much the whole world is now on board with slowing down. So right now, I guess my next mission is to get people to really, cook without being dependent on recipes, basically learning techniques, processes. I do tend to talk a lot about ingredients because it is particularly important for me to talk about health stuff. So yes, I am sometimes brand specific because they're not always equal. And the other thing that we're doing for the Let's Cook classes is we're working with what's available in the pantry because we're not able to go out as often as we want, grocery shopping. And also working with leftovers so that we can repurpose them into what I call beaux, which is a French term that means beautiful leftovers, but I'm coining it to mean beautifully repurposed leftovers. Okay, also the other thing before I forget, we are trying to raise funds for Feeding America. So if you are at all in any position to do so, at the, pretty much a few days after the classes, everyone gets an email and I send a link. I understand a lot of people are in weird situations, so it's completely voluntary. But if you can, it's a great thing to do because there are lots of people who are hungry, unfortunately, in not only in the world, I mean, the US, which is almost kind of weird to think of. The other thing on protocol, this is an interactive class. And so feel free to unmute yourself anytime you have questions. I do love hearing from people and, making it more a discussion. I don't see chat messages, so just so you know, because we're cooking. I was trying to go on Facebook. I'll try one more time, but it seems to be hanging. So we might not have a live stream today. Yep, it's not happening. And I see Melissa too, my ex-student. Nice to see you. All right, before I forget, if you are gonna make the Parmesan crisps, let's preheat the oven to 400 degrees and then I will talk about our menu. But let's make sure because it'll take a few minutes for that. Okay, what's on the menu? So we're gonna do 3 things, really easy. It's Italian inspired. The first one is a tomato soup. And we're gonna accompany that with Parmesan crisps. And then we're also gonna make an Italian frittata. So if you're not familiar with the frittata, it's basically an Italian style omelette, except, it's gonna be fancier. We're gonna be broiling it later on so you have a nice golden, oozy, eggy thing with lots of cheeses. And that's actually what we're gonna use for our beaux rest with leftovers. So let me show you the ingredients I'm working with today. Let's see. All right, all right, so for the tomato soup, well, I cheated. I actually went to the grocery today because I was really running low. So I scored some celery. So we're gonna start off with a tomato soup with a sofrito, and in French it's mirepoix, which is basically a trinity of aromatics. It's celery, carrots, and onions, except I do have shallots, so I'm using shallots instead of onions. So we're gonna use that plus tomatoes, of course. I have different kinds here. And I will add, just because, why not, some garlic. Sometimes I don't, sometimes I do. It's one of those things that I'm just in the mood for more garlic. I also have tomato paste. This is organic tomato paste. I will talk more about this later. Some stock, some chicken stock. I do have a bunch of spices here. I tend to like cayenne. And the cumin and curry, this is actually completely optional, but I'm just gonna show you some things that we can do with the Parmesan crisp, okay? So if you don't have this, not a problem. And then let's see, for the Parmesan crisp, grated Parmesan, that's all we will need for that. And then we will have, I have to just talk about this a little bit. So for the Parmesan crisp, if you're making it, you will need a baking sheet with either a silicone mat, this is a silicone mat, or parchment paper or wax paper, just so, because we're gonna be putting our Parmesan here and you don't want it to stick. That's why we're using that, okay? So again, silicone mat, parchment paper, or wax paper. I have some garnishes here because why not? I have it, my garden is becoming, well, full of stuff. I have parsley, oregano. I have thyme. Let's see, yeah, thyme, chives, and the flowers. And as with previous classes, you know, anytime I can use edible flowers in my plating, I will. These are edible organic pansies, and yeah, chive flowers. First few ones that blossomed. Then for the frittata, eggs. I will probably use 7. So this depends on your skillet size, of course, and I'm using a big skillet, and of course, how many eggs will determine how thick also your frittata is. So there's no wrong or right, it's just you want to make sure you just have enough to cover your pan, and then adjust accordingly. I do have goat cheese also, because I kind of like goat cheese and in my frittata, but you can use other cheeses, of course. Well, did I miss anything? Oh yeah, my leftovers. Duh. Here we go. So I have, these were previously steamed broccoli. I have, this one is not a leftover, but I have some mushrooms that I can use for my frittata. This was leftover rotisserie chicken, which I already used my hands to like get pieces out of that. And I happen to have, I talk about this a lot because I make this maybe every 2 months, but this is like a batch of caramelized onions that's already in the fridge. So I'll probably use some of that. We're gonna start with the garlic. And the reason why we're gonna start with the garlic, I'm gonna use this both for the tomato sauce and tomato soup, and also the frittata. Now, I have spoken about this in class before, but it's always good to mention it, and it's because it's not knowledge that I've come across for years and years. It's like something I learned fairly recently. But we all know about the health benefits of fruits and vegetables. What you have, the beneficial compounds in plants, they're called phytonutrients. And garlic, I mean, you know, they do sell garlic supplements for a reason. And that's because garlic has what's called allicin, which is a compound which is anti-carcinogenic, antiviral, antibacterial. It's one of those super beneficial compounds. However, the compound is comprised of 2 things, a heat-sensitive enzyme called allinase and a protein called allele. And they have to commingle to make the allicin. But the problem is, if you cook it too soon, the heat-sensitive enzyme, the allinase, basically gets destroyed and you don't get allicin. So apparently a workaround, and I will tell you my sources for this, is to just make sure after crushing or processing it that you let it rest for 10 minutes before it hits the heat, okay? So I'm just gonna use, let's see, for my soup, I will use 3 cloves, and for my frittata, I'll use 2, so basically 5. And by the time we get around to using the garlic, it's surely gonna be 10 minutes already. So, okay, so that's out. I'm using a pestle and mortar, and I'm gonna switch view, and it's just my preferred way, but you don't have to use this. You can use the back end of your flat part of your knife. But the reason why I like pestles and mortars, it's because you can do a lot of stuff that you can't do with a knife, like crushing. And you know, when you crush, you're basically getting as much of the juices out so that you can really get that garlicky flavor, and you're really getting that allicin commingling happening, okay? So if you are familiar with how to do this, you know that you just do a light hit with the pestle, and then the skin can come off, which is what I'm doing. Just removing the skin, and then I will remove some of the ends, which I just don't like it, but you know, it's not a problem if you don't. I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's see. Oh God, it smells so good. Yeah, I eat garlic. I can eat a lot of garlic. And as long as you don't have appointments and dates, and who does these days, there's no reason why you can't eat a lot. So what about bad breath? Ha ha. And you know what? Before penicillin was invented, garlic actually and onions were the antibacterial agents. They were used for poultices. That's how good this is. So some people ask me, like, how often do you wash your mortar and pestle? And actually, I wash it when it gets really like sticky, you know. I'll show you actually what I mean. So like there's a lot of stuff that gets stuck. And at this point, you know, I will wash it after, but only because of that, because it gets in the way, not because it's dirty, because as I said, it is an antibacterial. So I just like to remove trim the ends. Okay, then I will crush it, and that's pretty much ready to go for later. So it's, you know, ever since I learned about this allicin thing, I started changing my routines when it came to preparing foods, because, you know, if you just make garlic the first thing, you forget about it after, and then boom, it's a habit, it's easy. And if you want to know more about all these beautiful phytonutrients, how to access, because, you know, it's different from vegetable to vegetable, I will highly recommend a book called Eating on the Wild Side by Joe Robinson. Okay, I am smashing, and that is pretty much that until we need to use it. Okay, next, we are gonna prep our Parmesan crisp. The oven isn't, it's still gonna take a few minutes for the oven to be at 400. That's okay, we're just prepping it so we are prepared when it's fine. Okay, that means I will get the silicone stuff. All right, so Parmesan, this is ridiculously easy, okay? Which is what I like, because you know, when you're busy, you want to be able to have a few things that you can just call up your repertoire of easy stuff, right? And this is one of those. So how this works is you basically make a little pile. Maybe that's about, and this is up to you what size you want. But what will happen, and you want to visualize this first. So I made this little, there we go. That's about maybe less than 2 tablespoons. When we put it in the oven, that thing is gonna melt. So it's gonna go melt and flatten out, which means it's probably gonna be about this big. So that's why you can adjust whatever size you want. You can make it smaller crisps or larger ones. And pretty much when you do little mounds of cheese, just take care that you have enough space so that they don't become just one giant crisp, which I guess there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to crack it. Now, here's the other thing. I'm gonna make it slightly smaller. That's interesting is you could, because I played with this before, you could mix different spices with it. So if you wanted to change up the flavors, I'm probably just gonna make 4 because we're only 2. So I will make 4, and I might as well put them in different parts of the tray. And like this one, I'm gonna add cumin. Why not? Just a little bit. I mean, if you like cumin, right? I like cumin. And then let's try curry for here. So again, all optional, but why not? We are playing. So the thing that we like to do a lot, Jeff and myself, is to play, because, you know, aside from life being short and you want to have more fun, actually playing is the best way to learn, because you can experiment, you're free to do stuff, and then you learn from it. Okay, what did I say? I was gonna put, oh yeah, I was gonna do curry here. So this is a curry powder, is basically a mix of different things like cumin and cloves and turmeric. Okay, and I'm not putting salt because Parmesan is already salty. You know what? I'm doing 2. Do it there. Huh. Okay, so that's ready. I'm just doing, as I said, 4. And this, when this hits the oven, that's just 3 to 5 minutes, and we'll have to just watch. Okay, so that's happening. We're waiting because my oven is still not at 400. It's probably not going to be a big deal if that works out. All right, we're going to start the frittata, the prep, actually both the frittata and the tomato soup, the prepping for all the vegetables that will go with it. But I just wanted to check in for those who are using leftovers for the frittata. Can you just sort of let me know what you're using, so I just have an idea? So you can, Sandy, go ahead. I see you already.
I have some red pepper, but it's not cooked yet.
Okay, good. We're gonna saute together. Fine. Yeah.
I have a mix of broccoli, mushrooms, and carrots that are cooked from leftovers.
Okay. Okay. Great.
And
so that's fairly similar.
Spinach.
And spinach.
Yes.
Is that fresh spinach or
fresh? Yeah.
Fresh. Okay. All right. It's all because they cook differently. Who else is making? Just raise your hands and I'll just call you. Whoever's first. No one else making the, oh, is it Melissa? Yeah, what's in your frittata?
I have mushrooms, spinach. Those aren't cooked. I was gonna put some ham in it. It's just deli ham.
Okay, okay. So basically, yeah, we're gonna have to saute, because sometimes you don't have to, but I think looks like a lot of us have it. Anyone else that I can just check on?
Yeah, I have ham and bell peppers.
Okay, all right. So looks like, okay, that's pretty much, that's great. So what we're doing, because you can have enough ingredients that don't have to be sauteed, but I'll be sauteing with you anyway, so perfect. We will talk about which ones will be sauteed and not. So let's start off with, let's prep the ingredients of the tomato soup, which is the carrots, the celery, and also in shallots in my case. Let's do that. And let's make sure Ooh, my oven just hit 400, so I'm putting it in. So if you're doing that, go ahead, and then I'll have to ask Alexa, set the timer for 3 minutes.
3 minutes, starting now.
Okay, you know, it's always good to have reminders when you're doing all sorts of things. It's so easy to forget. Okay, so all we're doing, so the tomato soup will be pureed. So what we're doing only now when we chop this, so it doesn't have to be beautiful, but we want to make it fairly even size. Like you want to cook pretty much the same time. So maybe I'll just show you faster to. So I'm just trimming the edges. This is an organic carrot. Your nutrients are here in the skin. So if you have organic carrots, don't peel it, okay? So I'm just thinking maybe something like 1/2 inch to 1 inch size, okay? Shallots, giving myself a bit of a, well, this is a little bit harder to play around than onion, but we'll talk about this. This is actually the most healthy of all the alliums. So let's go into that. So I always like to talk about stability when it comes to, you know, just basic knife technique. Yeah, shallot rolling around, right? So create a stable base first. So cut off the poles. It's similar to an onion, just a little bit, you know, this is a nice big one. I try to get big shallots because the small ones are a lot more work. And always the shell, that's why you have to be careful because it's easy for the knife to slip. Okay, I'm just, yeah, see? So actually cutting the middle down so that I can peel. So yeah, so onions, I spoke about this last week. So the phytonutrients of onions, including shallots, it's called quercetin. And this is one of the exceptions for when you think about like how to preserve the most phytonutrients. Usually when you cook something, it depletes it. But onion, carrots, tomatoes, those are actually the exception, and you release more when you cook it, okay? So onions also have allinase, but the predominant phytonutrient that's also antibacterial, antiviral, anti-carcinogenic is the quercetin. So this one, I'm just going to roughly slice it this way. Notice I'm just using my knuckles as a guard. I am a pianist. I'm a jazz pianist and vocalist. And so, you know, pretty much my whole life I've been careful about my fingers. Ooh, Alexa, stop. You see how easy to forget that there's something in the oven. So I will check. Okay, I think. Okay, I can give that like a minute more. Alexa, set a timer for
how long?
1 minute.
1 minute, starting now.
Okay, so we have that for, I wanted to do some, actually, I think I'll just use 1.5 of this because usually I would use an onion that was larger than this. So maybe just 1.5. So yeah, shallots, it's interesting because I didn't grow up with shallots. And you know, you see them in the US, but from what I've read, it's not also something that a lot of Americans normally cook with. But in other Asian cooking, like in Thailand, it's actually shallots that are predominantly used. So because I also found out that shallots are the healthiest, I've been increasing my shallot usage. Okay, so done with the shallots. I'm just doing now carrots. Oops, and that's Alexa, stop. All right. So let me just show you this. And you can turn off the oven already because, where's my overhead? Because you won't need it anymore. So I'll show you. It's gonna look like this just like a goop, like it just melted. Now we have to do this first because this has to cool, and when it cools down, you can use a spatula to scrape this out. So right now, obviously, it's molten, so you can't do that. Hopefully, by the time the class is ended, this is cool enough. So I'm putting this to the side. All right, let's continue with our slicing. Let's see. Let's put all of these guys here. Now, in terms of cooking organization, you know, I have been, you know, cooking maybe the last 15 years, and I do remember how it is. Oh, speaking of rolling things, see, I'm not tossing that, I'm just washing it. By the way, I don't mention it anymore, but I am assuming people are very well versed with the idea of washing hands. So carrot's another one that's like completely unstable. So let's create stability. There we go. Also this one. And I know I was saying something about, oh yeah, kitchen organization and cleanliness. So one of the things that I've learned over the years is because we also compost. So, you know, when I talk about a slow and sustainable lifestyle, usually when I have spiels in class, I talk about how we're 100% wind energy, we compost, our properties also certified wildlife habitat, you know, so we really take pains to take care of the environment. So because I compost and I have all these trims, I have, I'll just show you, a little bowl that's, you know, anytime I'm prepping stuff, I have a bowl so that I don't have to always go to the compost bin or trash if you had to trash it, because it's already here. So in terms of efficiency, you know, it's so much easier. All right, celery. These are nice organic celeries. So celery is one of those things, it appears in the, you know, as much as possible, I try to get organic, but it's expensive to keep getting organic. So I follow this list called the Dirty Dozen list, and it's the list, it's produced by the Environmental Working Group. Every year they release the 12 dirtiest, vegetables and fruits in terms of pesticides. So, you know, since we're prepping, I'm just gonna do also the bell pepper. I'm not using all of this. I'm just gonna de-seed it and use maybe 1/4. So I've washed already all my veggies. So I'm just like taking that out. Okay. And maybe, you know, I like the red. When I think of food that we're gonna make, I imagine what it would look like. So then I tried to play with colors. So I had, of course, the choice of using green, red, or yellow peppers. I have all of them actually in the fridge, but I thought, you know what? I want the red to come out against the yellow, which is the eggs. So let's use red. So in terms of, so that's very arbitrary, right? That's completely aesthetics at work. And how thin, how fat, etc., has to do always with, well, a lot of it's aesthetics. It's also how much you like the ingredient. And you know, I don't really want to eat a very fat piece of pepper when I'm digging into the frittata. So slimming it down. Now this is going to cook down a bit. So you see, you're seeing it's plump because of the moisture. That will, of course, thin out when we saute. Maybe actually one more. Okay, then we'll start with the soup. I'm trying to think if I missed. Oh yeah, tomatoes. That's the other thing we'll need to work out. Okay, that's pretty much that. And I'll put this somewhere up here. And okay, for the tomatoes. Okay, we'll talk about tomatoes. So tomatoes have, in terms of I'm just doing spotlight video. In terms of phytonutrients, it's called lycopene, okay? Lycopene, it's a kind of a beta carotenoid. It's what gives it the color. And this is one of those things where you can access more lycopene the more it's processed, the more it's heated. And so the healthiest version of a tomato is actually tomato paste. And I love using tomato paste because it is one of those things that just gives a level of complexity, because it's very, it's similar to sun-dried tomatoes. You've cooked out the moisture, so you're concentrating the flavors, and it becomes this really rich, sweet thing, which it darkens. It darkens. That's, I guess, the best way I can put it. And what I love to do with tomatoes, especially summer when the tomatoes are already out, is to actually mix fresh tomatoes.
Let me give you this one, okay?
Is to mix fresh tomatoes and sun-dried tomatoes and tomatoes, and then you have different things. Okay, I'm hearing someone. Okay, so I'll open this too, so I don't forget. If you're using tomato paste, then this is the time to do it. Back to slicing our tomatoes. So we're just rough chopping because we're cooking it down anyway, and then we're gonna be pureeing. So let me get the container for that. Maybe this one. So I just removed those little, just like a triangular area of the stem. Outside of that, everything goes in, but of course, I'm just gonna make it smaller. Okay. And will I use all of this? Maybe so. Yeah, why not? Just makes it more tomatoey. I wish I had sun-dried tomatoes, because I always love that complex thing that I was talking about, you know, layering the flavors. But, you know, a little bit of the tomato paste will work out that way. Let's see. Okay. All right. 1, 2, yeah, let's just finish up all of these. And then, actually, before I chop this all, I'll probably start off sauteing the carrots, onion or shallots, and celery. So, because it will take a few minutes anyway before it'll be ready for the tomatoes to go in. So, a little bit about this trio. So we're talking about this. So in Italy, they call this the sofrito. Sofrito is basically, you know, in a lot of cultures, you have a trinity of vegetables that get sauteed. So in Italy and France, the French call this mirepoix, and Italy it's sofrito, and it's basically celery, carrots, onions as a base. So in the Philippines, for example, we do ginger, garlic, onions, you know, usually. I think in New Orleans, it was something unusual like bell pepper. I think Louisiana, yeah, bell pepper, holy basil, was it? can't be. But anyway, it's like different from culture to culture. So it's why I say, okay, it's definitely Italian because we're using their Trinity. It's actually not, you know, I'm like kind of fooling around with a lot of stuff because I like to take from different cultures. All right, so let's get our soup stock ready. The soup stock container. I'm gonna change angles and we are gonna start sauteing. I am gonna use olive oil for this. So put it on medium heat and we're just gonna lightly coat with olive oil. So maybe about 2 tablespoons, just enough so that the whole bottom is coated. Let's see, turn on the vent fan. Okay, so in order of what we're sauteing, we'll start with the Trinity. And then when it's translucent, that's usually my guide when the onions are translucent, which will probably take maybe 3-4 minutes. We can add the garlic. So I also like to put a pinch of salt just to draw out the moisture, just hastens it. Now, the thing with tomato paste is you want to cook it. People forget about that, but if you cook the tomato paste, you get more of the flavor in. So after the garlic goes in, so I'm just giving you the order. After sauteing these guys, the garlic goes in because the garlic is smaller, will burn faster, so you don't want to put that together with these guys. And then after 1.5 minutes of the garlic, we're putting the tomato paste in. And then that will cook for maybe a couple of minutes, and then we can put the tomatoes and cook that down a bit before putting the stock. Okay, don't worry, I will talk about that again, but right now, we'll wait for that. Waiting. So there's a lot of stuff that happens, you know, when you're cooking, there's a lot of downtime. So, you know, that's always the time that's nice to discuss more ingredients or brands, and also when I organize around so that, you know, you're not left with so much work by the end of the cooking process, right? So it's always, you know, I like to talk about how to have fun in the kitchen, because if you just start thinking of it as work and you start dreading it, then it can never really be part of your lifestyle. But if you do stuff that's fun, so, you know, I don't have the music on now, but normally I do, and I don't have it because the last time I Facebook streamed, live streamed, and I had the music, I had all this notice that said, do you own the music? And this and that. I'm like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. Plus, it interferes with the sound. Okay, I'm checking in on my, yep, it's nicely sizzling. Just don't want to forget about that. All right. Oh, and while that's happening, I'm just gonna like slice the rest of the tomatoes.
Marlene, I have a question.
Yes.
I decided to cook the soup. This is Meredith. Can I use a food processor instead of a blender?
Yeah, the only thing is it's gonna be chunky. So,
oh, okay. I'll get my blender out.
Yeah. Now, yeah, that's the thing. And
blender.
Also, if you have a Vitamix, which I do, which I will also talk about, and no, I am not working for Vitamix, but I get into this thing when I really love something, I get obsessed, and then I talk a storm about it. And I have so many friends who bought Vitamix because I've been waxing lyrical about it. But anyway, why it's amazing, particularly for soups, is that it actually purees it so much that you get a silky quality, which you can't always get with blenders. And in fact, in the olden days, before Vitamix, restaurants would achieve this silken texture by straining out the soups. And what they basically strained out was the fiber, right? All the good stuff. And I don't like that. I like to use it up because it's healthier that way. And so that's why I have the Vitamix. Okay, so I'm eyeing my sofrito, and it looks like, oh, wait, not yet. Sometimes you have the layers of the whatever shallots or celery on top, and if they're not hitting the metal part, the bottom of your pan, it's not getting cooked. So you just want to make sure, right? Okay.
Hey, Marlene. Marlene?
Yes?
If I don't have tomato paste, is that okay?
Yeah. Remember, it's always layers. So if you don't have it, you don't have that unusual layer, but it's still gonna work out. But
okay.
Next time, try it because you'll see what I'm talking about. There are differences.
All right.
Yeah,
okay.
Cool. It looks like garlic is ready to go. So and as I said, I actually don't usually put garlic in this soup, but I thought, why not this time? And then let's spread that around and get your tomato paste ready. Again, make sure it hits the bottom so it gets hot or cooks. And so what you do when you're sauteing is you're releasing the oils of the aromatics, and so you're getting all those flavors. All right. And pretty much after about a minute or so, you start smelling the garlic. And that gives you a clue that you are ready to go in the next stage, which is the tomato paste. So I'm thinking, actually, I don't measure. Just make sure. So, but I will attempt to measure maybe about 2 tablespoons. Okay, make it more. It's tomatoes. 2 tablespoons. Do that little. And making sure it hits the pan. Now, don't worry if you see all these like sticky bits. That's called fond. The French call it fond. And that's your flavor. And that will, when you put liquid, and even the tomato, the fresh tomatoes counts as liquid, that will deglaze, meaning you will remove that. And you want that because that's all flavorful stuff. All right, that's ready. We can put our tomatoes in. And you see when you start stirring it around, all the stuff that's stuck, the fond, the liquid gets that out. And if the tomatoes are not enough to do it, your chicken or whatever stock you put, or even water, if you don't have stock, that will work out. Now, I like to use stock because there's flavor. When you make stock, you know it comes with, you make stock from bones, from, well, assuming it's not vegetable stock, but other stocks. It's from bones, it's from all sorts of vegetables and aromatics, and so there is a flavor component to stock already. There you go. I'm just gonna cook this a bit, and then we're gonna add the liquid. Now I'll talk about that. Okay. Basic rules, to make soups. Soups like this. This is a particularly, it's like if you had to have a template on how to make this kind of soup. Basically, it's, saute your aromatics and then put what the soup is made out of, which is tomatoes. Maybe saute a little bit. Sometimes you don't have to. and then liquid, season. Okay, all just that. You can adapt that to, so for example, if I make squash soup, I would just, I love squash with ginger, or sometimes actually doesn't have to have, but meaning I would saute, let's say ginger and onions, and then put a little bit of squash later, and then liquid. See, so it's pretty much a similar process. Now, the only thing to remember is, even when you're following recipes, don't put the full amount of liquid that it calls for, because you want to start always with a little bit, just enough to cook things down, because it's easy to add. And then you can also, along the way, you can figure out if you like the viscosity. If it's thick enough, the soup, then fine. If it's too thick, water it down with liquid. But once you get into it's too liquid, it's hard to manage that, short of, you know, adding more stuff and having to cook it so that, you know, you're basically changing the ratios, okay? So I will only add enough to make sure that the tomatoes are still cooking down, which we'll see. I will change the view. You can actually even puree the soup at this point, and you'll have, so it depends how long you cook your tomatoes for. If you pureed it right now, you would have a lot of freshness that would come out because your tomatoes are barely cooked. But I'll go somewhere in the middle, and we'll just cook that down for maybe just like 10 minutes. And to hasten it, I'm putting the lid. So remember, this is already cooked, can be pureed as is, but I want to cook it a little bit longer. Remember, that's also how you release the lycopene. And we will season later. Okay, so let's prep the rest of the other ingredients, the frittatas. So it's pretty much just the frittata. All right, for the frittata, I made sure to mention you need an oven-proof skillet. So this, because there are some that are not. So make sure that it can go in the oven, because we're going to be broiling it. And then, of course, this is a skillet. It has a bit of a lip so that, you know, it's not too flat that the eggs will run off. So, and of course, you can use a smaller one, but I like leftovers, so I tend to cook a lot. Okay, so let's get the ingredients are sauteing. So I know some of you talked about mushrooms and bell pepper. So the bell pepper I already sliced earlier. So we will saute together, let's see, bell pepper, garlic, which I already have pounded. And is there anything else I want? Well, those are the aromatics. And then wow, this is going to be really easy. So for the mushrooms, I am just rough slicing. And I don't think, will I use all of this? No, so mushrooms are also full of moisture. So when you're calculating how much, you have to imagine also that once this gets heated and cooked, you're losing a lot of the volume, because that's the moisture that you're cooking down. So, oh yeah, someone was going to be cooking with spinach, fresh spinach, same thing. So fresh spinach, we might as well saute it, because you won't, the volume of that will reduce considerably, because it's practically all water. Yep, I think that's perfect. I'll use that. For the broccoli, just little florets. I'm not gonna use all of these, maybe that much, maybe a little bit more. This is my primary green. Now, since I blanched this, it's still a little bit wet, and I always talk about how you want to keep things as dry as possible, because that's what dilutes the flavors when you have too much moisture. Okay. So I'm patting that dry. And I will just slice this a little bit more into what I would consider easy bite size. So you don't want, so this is the other thing, you don't want really chunky pieces, because anything that's like sticking out of the frittata that gets broiled could actually burn. So you just want to minimize. It's still wet. Okay. So your best bet is, of course, to just make it small. Yeah, I think I have, that should be okay for, so that, let's see, I have my red pepper, I have my chicken, I think, you know, I will have more vegetables. I do like my broccoli, so let's just add more. I know why this is watery. That's because I actually am testing out a new product, which is frozen broccoli from Costco. It's a big, big bag. And I wanted to just see how it would work out. It's not bad. It's just very watery once you defrost. Okay, and then the cheeses I will just add later. So when we do the frittata, you want to have everything on hand because it's kind of fast, the process. So I'm gonna just like prepare my goat cheese, and then we'll work on that later. Okay, looks like that's ready. Ta-da. Eggs. All right, our eggs. So I have 7 eggs. I will just crack them. Well, now that was not smart. First, the rule is you have to remove the eggs before cracking it in. There we go. There we go. And if you're thinking I'm gonna get salmonella all over here because of the raw egg, don't worry, everything's gonna get cooked. Okay, those are the things that you wanna keep in mind, because you can get salmonella from not only raw meats, but raw egg. Needless to say, everything gets washed. Okay, there we go, wash hands. Okay, what are we gonna do with the eggs? I like to mix mine with a little bit of half and half, and also just a little bit of water so that it's not too dense, okay? And I tend to use, you don't have to in this case, but just out of habit, I use the filtered refrigerator water, which is chilled. That actually has an effect. If you're making batter, you want cold water, but in this case, you don't really need cold water. But I am using it because I'm going here. I put in about, for the 7 eggs, maybe about a tablespoon to 1.5 of the water, and then half and half I will do, let's see, about 2 tablespoons. And you can get a whisk or a fork, whichever, lightly whisk. So we're just prepping all of these guys. If you want to season this at this point, you can, you know, why not? I'll put some salt, some pepper, cayenne again. And again, arbitrary, I just happen to like these guys. Oh, you know what? Since the cumin's out, I'm gonna put some cumin. Why not? Let's put some pepper. You can do this also later, but I like doing it in different stages because then you can have the flavors. Again, we're talking about building layers of flavor, layers of, in this case, it's flavor. Sometimes I talk about layers of texture. And that's pretty much ready to go for later. So we just set that aside. So now, the components that will go into the frittata. So the first, what we're gonna do is we're gonna saute what has to be sauteed, and that would be your aromatics. In my case, it's garlic, because I don't like onions unless it's caramelized onions in my frittatas. So mine is just gonna be garlic. And because the pepper is actually also an aromatic, so the pepper will have to go first because the pepper is bigger versus the garlic, which is small and will burn easily. So when you think about the order of what to saute, you kind of have to work with the ones that will cook the longest. That has to go first. Now, if you really finely chopped your onions, let's say, or your bell pepper, then you're making it a little bit more equal. So those factors all have a difference. They make a difference. But since I don't want to really chop my bell peppers that much, I will just put it in as is. Okay, so let's make sure I'm not forgetting that. Oh yeah, so then what's happening? So we're sauteing, then we're gonna have a bowl because we're gonna remove whatever's done sauteing into the bowl, and then we're gonna put the egg in, and then we'll put back the components after. Okay, so I'll give you time if you want to look at that. In the meantime, I'm just checking my soup. The soup at this point, okay, I almost forgot something. I showed you herbs in the beginning. I have, let's see, doesn't matter. I have oregano, which is a really good pairing with tomato stuff, and thyme. So these are fresh. If you are using dried oregano and thyme, put it now because you want to cook it down a little bit, or else you're gonna taste a bit of there's that raw taste which doesn't always sit so well. You want it also to release the juices, which means just give it time. Time. That's a really funny thing, but anyway, give it some time so that it cooks down. But if you're using fresh stuff like this, it becomes a toss-up. This usually, if it's fresh, you put it towards the end versus dry. Okay, so I can put it now and maybe just give it a few minutes just to hang out, let it do its magic. And I'm not even bothering with chopping these guys because it's going to be pureed. Okay, so I'm just like dumping this and making sure it's cooked a little bit. And the time, yeah, oh, I just need to fish that out. So with the thyme, you can put everything but the actual main stem because the main stem is too fibrous. Since it's going to be puree. Where did my other thyme go? And this one. Oh, just the colors. Oh. Yeah, summer. I love summer because tomatoes. I mean, I'm growing. I have 6 that are already, that I started from seed that are already over a foot high. Some of them have fruits already because I started them in January. And then a few I started too soon and they died. So or actually are rehabbing. All right, so let's just mix that in. And then before this gets pureed, you want to cool it down, give it a chance to cool down. So I'll just give this like 2 more minutes with the heat on. I'll turn it off and then allow it to cool down. Okay. So that is that.
Marlene, if you're using dried oregano and dried thyme, how much do you put in?
So that's a really good question, and I have an interesting answer for that. I tend to, okay, people are very sparing with the dried stuff. Now, just to compare, dried herbs will be stronger than fresh herbs. So then you have an idea of like how much to put. Now, so saying, I've realized that we actually under spice in the US, and I learned that when I went to Bulgaria, and I was working in the farm, and the way they use the dried spices, I was just so surprised. It was like 3 times more than what I normally would. So I've actually gone a little bit higher in my use of dried spices. So if you were, you know, a lot of this has to do with how much soup you're making. So I don't know how much soup you're making. So you might want to try to be conservative and maybe just start off with maybe 1 teaspoon. And if you think next time that that's like, oh, I hardly tasted it, then you know that it'll be safe to go double or triple that. Okay, but for the size of my pot, if I use dried, I would use about a tablespoon. Okay, so again, all has to do with size. I'm gonna turn off my soup now, allow that to cool down so that we can puree later. And now we're back with our frittata. Okay, so let's get all our stuff together, all the aromatics. Let's see, I have this. So my pepper is gonna go in first. Yeah, and pretty much, I think that's okay. All right, so olive oil again. I'm using olive oil, enough to coat the pan. In terms of heat, remember when you start with a cold pan, you can always start with high heat, but just don't forget it, and you want to adjust afterwards and make it medium. In this case, we're sauteing, so medium. But because it's cold, I do high first. Okay. And then now I'm adjusting to medium. All right. Let's start. That's another thing that has a lot of liquid. So try not to cook it too close together so that it actually releases oils rather than steams. And while we're waiting, I am also clearing. Take that out and get my chicken out. I'm also preparing. This, you know, some ingredients you don't have to saute, but it's just to melt the flavor all together. Might as well saute them together, and then we will put it as one big batch. Okay. So here in the US, usually egg dishes are for brunch, breakfast or brunch. But in Spain, for example, they have omelettes are served at room temperature, and it's one of their tapas, or if you were in the Basque region, it's one of their pinchos, where you know you eat all sorts of other foods and you have omelette as part of what's served. So it's not just a breakfast thing. It's one of those things you can do all the time. Okay. And getting ready my garlic. My garlic's gonna go in, and then again, just for about a minute or so, and then the mushrooms are gonna make it. And remember, mushrooms are moisture, so that's a good reason why you want to saute it, is because you want to release some of that moisture. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna add garlic now. Watching it so we don't. And you know, I have some leftover oregano. I might use it also. Okay, I'm seeing the garlic brown, so I can start adding other things. So for you guys, I mean, after the aromatics, it doesn't matter so much anymore, the order. I'm gonna put some of my oregano because I already harvested it. Why not? And I will get the spatula. Oh, jumping. Oh, salt. So salt at this stage is always just to reduce the moisture, to remove moisture. Although I'm sure, you know, it does have bearing with the flavors too. All right. I'm putting in my broccoli. Ooh, I love the sound of sizzling food. It's so cool. So the broccoli is already cooked, but you want to warm it, you know, so that everything is going to be cohesive in flavor. And then I have my little caramelized onions here too that I'm just going to add. So I know it sounds fancy, the caramelized onions, but I tell you, once you start making this, it's hard to look back. You know, I never have, and what I do is I do big batches every other month, like maybe 7 giant onions, and it's freezable. I just saw a whole time that went here. And then make sure you have your bowl ready because we are just going to transfer this to a bowl when this is done. Let's make sure I don't forget the chicken. Just put that in. So the cheeses don't come in at this point, okay? This is just all the other things that go into the filling. Now, anytime you're working with leftovers, you know, you can have amazing leftovers, what we call beaux rest, you repurpose it. But that's all contingent on having good food to get good leftovers with. And of course, before that, it's good ingredients. I will now season a little bit more. So it's salt, pepper, and cayenne, just because I love cayenne. And that's pretty much it for this. Wait, I did say I was going to put cumin. I might as well put cumin. Oh, wow. That's smelling good. And I think the bowl I prepared is too small. Let's get a bigger bowl. turning off the fire first because we might go and segue into the tomato soup. So right now, if you're finished with the sauteing, just transfer it to a bowl. We're gonna use that skillet again, but let's just get that out.
Marlene,
Yes.
if I want to add some frozen shrimp, should I saute those with the vegetables or do that separate?
Oh, have you thawed it already?
No, I just thought of it.
Okay. Yeah, it's easy. First thaw it. You can do a quickie with the microwave oven. The reason why you don't want to put it with your sauteed stuff is it's going to release all the moisture and make a soggy mess. So defrost it first. You can do a turbo defrost, and then pat it dry as much as you can. And shrimp is anyway the last thing that you're going to be cooking. In fact,
I think
you might even be able to just put it before the broil, because
it needs warming. It's already cooked, I think.
it's already cooked.
I
Okay.
think so, yeah.
All right. So if that's the case, just defrost it. Make sure it's as dry as possible, because remember, any moisture that leaches into your food and will dilute flavor. So yeah, and then you can just put it on top right before the broiling.
Okay, thanks.
Okie dokie. So that's ready. Let's puree our soup. So I think we gave it enough time to cool down. You don't want to put really hot stuff in a blender. You can have accidents that way. So that's why I gave it some time. Okay, so I'm setting up for the blender. We're just basically gonna puree the whole thing, the soup. Now, don't worry about the liquids at this point, meaning adding stock. We will decide whether we need to add more stock later on. So I'm gonna do this at the sink so that I don't make a mess. And then if you have milk or half and half, or even yogurt, it's a good time to take that out of the fridge. Which I will do. All right, I am going to use half and half. I'm tail end of this, I might as well finish that up. And let's do this. Okay, so when working with a blender, any kind of blender, you have to just look at, they have a maximum amount. Don't exceed it. You have to follow that, because once it's on, and especially when it's on fast speed, the thing just pops up. So you want to make sure you don't exceed whatever limit it is. The other thing is, if it's hot, so like it's still smoking, it's not as hot as earlier, but it's still warm enough that it could be a problem if you are not careful. So you want to always start low, okay? Don't go into the full speed boom, because when heat, basically you're creating a pressure with the speed and heat, and that can pop the lid. So just be careful. I'm starting on low and build up slowly. And I do this sometimes to just release. You see, I don't know if you can see the steam, but you can release steam that way. And then, when you feel like it's going to be okay, go full from maximum. It's going to be noisy, so I'm going to stop talking when it's on max and go for it. to mention that you can actually also add your milk half and half, or yogurt at this point, just to cool it down, because this just came from the fridge, right? And as to how much, that's all, deal with that later. That's all, of course, subjective. That I probably put in maybe 4 tablespoons. I'm gonna like mix it again. And that's it. Back in the stock pot, and then we're gonna season and heat this up and decide whether you want to put more liquid or not.
Marlene, on the frittata, do we have we added the chicken already in there? The meat?
Yeah. Make
Oh,
sure everything except the cheese is all mixed with your saute stuff. Your chicken's already cooked, so it's just you just want to make sure all the flavors are together. Now, what I like to do, because there's all these yummy bits, I use, I try to get it out with just a little bit of stuff and maximize, you take this time to cook from scratch. You want every bit of goodie. Yeah, that's how I start the cleanup. Okay, and we will deal with that later. Okay, let's check on, so we are heating up the soup. Let's just check on, so at this point, viscosity and flavor, that's what we're gonna be looking at, okay? So in terms of thinness, look at this. I only put a little bit of the stock. I like this as is. If I had put too much, it would be watery. So this is actually, I think, perfect. And of course, that's because also the tomatoes were very juicy. Now let's check on flavor. It just needs salt and pepper. So this is flavor to taste. It's always a good idea to try out your stuff so you know how to adjust. Now, why yogurt could be good here? In fact, I will use yogurt as when we plate this. It's because I have strained yogurt. So aside from being creamy, it has that sort of sour characteristic, which like sour cream. So it's a really nice juxtaposition with the sweet tart of the tomato soup. This is done. All I'm doing is just heating up and just making sure I like the flavor. Yum. Just a little bit more. Okay. And I think, okay, that's it. All right. So I'm setting this somewhere. So that's just heating. And then let's check on our Parmesan crisp also. It's still a little bit warm. I just want to see whether it's possible to. Aha. So can you see? So that's a really nice side to go. So it still can get cooler, and the cooler it gets, the crisper it becomes. But that's ready. See? Let's make sure all the others are. Yeah. You can also, if you want it to be less oily, put them on paper napkins. In fact, I think I'll do that. look at that. You can even see it even more clearly. It's so pretty. It's like lace, you know. You can imagine as a snack, that's pretty yummy. Parmesan is one of the cheeses I always keep, you know. It's like there are a few that are staples. Parmesan, goat cheese, yeah, those are staples. Okay, so that's ready until we are actually plating, which means we are also done with this. All right, we are gonna go into frittata mode, but let me just get bowls. I forgot the bowls. Okay, so back to our eggs. Now, just re-whisk because it's settled already. Turn on the heat for your pan and coat it again with, oh, so you can just do olive oil, or you can mix olive oil and butter if you want to take it up a little bit more of a decadent notch. Right? Not. Where is my knife? Okay. Just a little bit. Always good to have fat. And you also want to make sure the whole pan is coated. So let me just talk about what's going to happen. We're going to put the scrambled eggs, or the more like the lightly whisked egg, in, and we will just cook it halfway. We're going to put all the filling or the toppings in. We'll spread it out before it's completely cooked, and then we'll include, you know, whatever other cheeses. Like I'm going to put my goat cheese too. But the Parmesan will be the last layer. And then while it's still half cooked, you're gonna put it in the broiler so it bakes the top. Okay, so I just wanna make sure. I'm just gonna run that process one more time. So we're basically gonna put the whisked egg in, and I'll show you because you wanna make sure, you don't wanna disturb it too much. You want the bottom to form a sort of crust. And then you're gonna be putting all the filling in, including cheeses that are not Parmesan. And then, you know, of course, you decorate it, make it look pretty, because once it's set, that's it. So you wanna distribute the colors you have. And then the Parmesan layer will be the last, and it's still half cooked, right? The egg thing, we broil it and wait for a few minutes, and that should be it. Okay, are we ready? Hi. Okie dokie, here we go. In. Okay, get the rest of your stuff in place. All my cheeses. Now, what I'm just gonna do is, I want the bottom to form a crust, but there's a lot on top, so I just want to help it along the cooking. And we are on medium high, okay? See, this is 7 eggs, and that's not so much, so you can always add more. So I'm just doing this so that we have a little bit more cooked egg. So that the broil is basically just cooking the top and also getting that golden brown from the Parmesan. So I'm just slowly getting it in. you can put your filling in, and you still, since it's still not cooked, you can still move it around. There's time. Oh man, see just the colors, the green, the red, brown. I'm turning off the heat because it's already, I can see that it's already nearing half. So just make sure it's distributed. You want to get the egg as much as possible everywhere. Okay, cheese. Arbitrary on how much you want. Just imagine your goat cheese is going to be melting in also. All these layers. So when you think of seasoning, don't forget your cheeses are part of the seasoning. This is a salty tart, right? Parmesan is also salty. So that's why you really should be careful when you're seasoning at the beginning, because of all these added ingredients that also provide flavors. Okay. I can see that some, oops. Ha. All right. That's pretty much it. I'm just trying to get whatever's on the fork out. Now I can see some have more liquid than others. I'm just gonna try to distribute a little bit more equitably. With a spoon. So here we go. And not to forget our Parmesan. See what I'm doing? Because, yeah. I have more filling than I normally do, which just means it's more yummy. Okay, now Parmesan. No rule of thumb, it's up to you. If you like cheesy, which I do, but you just want to distribute. Using a spoon. And get your oven ready to broil. And I would assume that's going to be in the top rack, because when you're broiling, it's usually on top, the heat source. Okay, that's pretty much it. I might add, why not, because I can, pepper. And let's broil. So I just turned on my broil. Now this will be different from oven to oven, so we just have to watch it. Okay. Alexa, set the timer for 3 minutes.
3 minutes, starting now.
Just to make sure, right? I'm gonna move the soup up close. And while we're waiting, I'm just gonna use the time to clear up and also ask you guys where you are. So is everyone in the stage of the broiling? Is everyone broiling at this point?
Should I broil or should I wait since it's early here? Is it better if I
you know
wait?
what? You might as well wait. Why not? I mean, you can actually eat this cool or, you know, room temperature, but why not wait? Just go ahead.
You're warm, right?
Yeah, you have 3 more hours, right?
Yeah.
Okay, who else?
So since you asked where people are from, my exchange student from Portugal was on, but she lost her Wi-Fi connection.
Oh, really? She was on this in this
She was
class?
on this, and then she texted me she lost connection. But you did have someone from Portugal, and she was really loving it.
Wow! So we have Portugal and Scotland. Two Europeans. Very cool. I didn't even ask who everyone else where they're from, but a lot of you I already know, so that's great. Let's see.
Marlene, do we put the cheese already?
Yeah. So Jella, put the cheese already in, and just make sure the Parmesan is the top layer, because that's what's gonna get golden brown.
Okay.
Okay, and then the tomato soup. We're actually going to be ready to plate soon, but we might as well wait for the frittata because it's really fast. And the tomato soup is done, and our Parmesan crisp is also done. So like boom, 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 how fast! So I want to make sure everyone's in the same page. Bernadette, you're making the frittata. Where are you?
See, yes, you put the oven at 350?
I put the omelette on broiled.
On broil. Okay.
Yeah, broil is like really, really hot, which is why you have to make sure you check. In fact, because everyone's oven is different, so you want to make sure, like my broil is actually I also forgot to put it on the top. Stop. Alexa, stop. Oh, and make sure you use mitts, okay? It's going to be really hot. Okay, not enough. Alexa, set the timer for 2 minutes.
I'm doing pretty good. My Parmesan crisp, I used wax paper, and that was, they all stuck. Is it better to use parchment or just go straight on the pan?
Wait, sorry. You said you're using parchment paper for the Parmesan crisp?
Well, I tried better, and that stuck. So I was going to try again. Would it be better to try like parchment or just go straight on the baking sheet? I don't have a silicone mat.
Don't go straight on the baking sheet. So first off, I'm assuming you don't have silicone mats, right?
No, I don't have those.
Okay, the parchment paper, I'm surprised actually that it didn't work. Do you have wax paper?
Yeah, I tried the wax paper first. Should I spray it or something first?
Usually it's okay. Maybe was it already set? Because if it's still hot, the Parmesan, it'll be hard to remove it. So maybe it's just a matter of just waiting for it to cool down. Is it? Can you just check? Alexa, stop.
I just did it like it was all cool. So I'll just try it again. Maybe I'll
have
better luck next time.
Yeah, that's interesting. Trying to think what else, because Parmesan has a lot of oil. It gets really. That's the reason why I had to put in a paper towel. So usually, yeah. I mean, there are all sorts of weird things that happen in cooking, and it's not necessarily like something you did. Oh, maybe it's a combination of if something was too cold, too hot, too whatever, right? I'm gonna check on the. I just wanted a little bit more golden brown. Alexa, set the timer for 2 minutes. Plating. All right. Okay, that's it. I'm turning off all my fires. Let's get Alexa, stop.
Oh, I'm having a hard time hearing. I think someone is unmuted.
Wait, sorry, I didn't hear that at all. Sorry, someone said something? No? Okay, just check this out. Hold it closer to the camera. But look at that. It's pretty beautiful looking. So we're just waiting for that to settle. I don't know if you notice or if you can see it, but the egg poofed up a bit, which is kind of nice. So it's like a fluffy pancake. Okay, so that's ready. So back to plating the soup. Make sure that handle is out of the way. I burned myself, I burned my forearm because the handle was in the middle and then boom, my arm just stuck to it and I'm like, no, ouch. All right, here we go, plating. So, nice white bowl. And then, of course, I'm gonna get a paper towel that's wet to mop up any little drips like that. Add a dollop of strained yogurt. Let's get a teaspoon. Fork. Just a little bit. So remember, this will add, this is also a flavor thing. It's not just how it looks. Doesn't spread as much as okay, let's have parsley. Oh, you know what? Why not add a piece of fresh tomato? I do have just one little piece. Yeah, I just thought of this now, so it's on the fly, but let's see. How about this? You know, we're playing, so why not really play? Here we go. Ooh, look at that. After all, the tomatoes. And if you get a Parmesan crisp, and it's so amazing to have choices. So let's say here. On the side. And you know what? Because we can, why not put a little flour? Okay. So here you go. You know what? You can still do a little bit of a drizzle with olive oil, just a little bit. Because the oil, I don't know if you can see this, but it floats on top. And there's a little design. I'm just gonna put it up. You see where the oil goes? So you can make a little design out of that too. All right, that's all she wrote for both tomato soup and Parmesan crisps. Done. And now let's check on our frittata. So how are you guys with your soups? Are you all done?
My soup is done, but I'm still tweaking it because the kids are tasting it.
Oh, okay, good.
So I added more tomato paste because they wanted more tomato, and I put basil in it.
Ah, there you go. Another marriage in heaven there, right? Basil. I know I was toying with that, but I'm like, you know what? It's okay. So when summer comes and my basil plants are a little bit heftier, I will attack it. Okay, I'm also gonna plate now the frittata because I wanted to see how thick it can get. But so I just want to check in though because I'm pretty much in the last stage. It's like if you guys are finished with either frittata or the tomato soup, can you show me? Would love to see. It's always nice to see.
I thought it was very interesting, but I hurt my arm, so I couldn't cook with you. But I learned some fabulous tips.
Oh, Lenny!
Yes, I don't use the mortar and pestle the way you do. What I do is I take like a bag of pre-peeled garlic that you can buy organic garlic, and I put it in the food processor, and I make tiny pieces, and then I put it in a plastic bag and smooth it out and freeze it and break off what I need. So, but
nice.
Yeah, I thought I'd mention it because it's useful.
Yeah, that's actually, it sounds like a great idea. Then you have garlic at the ready, And it's already waited enough time so that the Allison is...
I always wait, yeah, 10 minutes. And I put it in the freezer. But I still wait, and of course it's, yeah, exactly. But next time I want 1 or 2, or I'm out of my prepared garlic that way, I'm going to use my mortar and pestle. So thank you.
And thank you for sharing that both time saver and yeah, that is a time saver actually.
Well,
the garlic.
Marlene, you share a lot with everybody, and I'm just happy I could share that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, come on, guys, show me your soups.
Okay. I burned my frittata.
You burned your frittata? Oh no!
I know.
Wait, you burned it. Wait, you burned it on the broil stage or in the?
Yeah, on the broil stage.
Oh.
I forgot to set my Alexa.
Oh no! So, you know, I tell you, broiling, you cannot walk away from your kitchen if you're broiling, and you have to. That's why I'm so reliant on like Alexa or whatever, because you're doing all these other things and it's easy to forget. Oh no! Is it
That's my soup?
Recovery? Wow!
That's my
gorgeous,
soup.
Gorgeous.
And then here's my frittata. Ta-da!
Oh, charred. Oh no!
It's charred.
Is any of it like salvageable? The parts, if you scrape the charred parts.
I was gonna try and do that and see what's underneath. So
yeah, because it's only the top that's gonna be.
Yeah, it's the cheese and the onions, the caramelized onions that were sticking out.
Okay.
Got burned. So.
All right, but at least that's a great lesson that you really have to check on your broiler.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. We're all learning. What else? Who else?
Quick look at quickly.
Wait, Bernadette.
Quickly, okay?
That looks great. Okay. Did you taste it yet? No.
No.
Okay, we can save that for later. Melissa,
I'm going to use Katie for taste it first.
Oh, that's right.
And it was a lovely experience. I love it.
Yeah. I'm also looking for my spatula so I can cut through. Melissa, are you going to show me yours?
Yeah, I made the frittata in, hold on, let's see if I can get it, in a cake pan. Because
whoa! Okay, that's a new, and did it work out well?
Yeah, it didn't stick at all.
There we go. That's great. Beautiful. Who else?
My frittata came out good. I was impressed with it. Better than I thought it was gonna be. And that's the first time I've ever gotten anything to come out of this pan without sticking.
Jennifer, that's beautiful. Oh my God. Okay, I guess this is the truth now. We have to, I'm going to be slicing, but I know I missed a few more, but let me just slice through this. And of course, when you're slicing, you want to make sure you don't ruin your pan, right? So, let's, actually, I don't even need that. I can just use a really light one. Hopefully it's set already really well under and I can pick it up cleanly, because if it did not set, then maybe I'll do one here too. I have a, there's my spatula. I knew I was looking for something. All right, fingers crossed. Of course, it could be too big. Maybe I'll make it smaller. I'd be asking for trouble if it's too big. Aha. I don't know if you heard that. That's my husband who was like, he's heckling outside. do.
What should I use to drink with?
Oh, pairing. I should call my husband. He's the one who always likes to pair. But what? Well, you know what? Tomato goes well with rosés and even light reds like a Pinot Noir. Eggs, eggs go with white. So actually go in the middle if you're just going to have one. And
What if I only have Cabernet Sauvignon?
what do you have?
I only have Cabernet.
Cabernet?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Cabernet can work. I am going to move this away because I just realized you're not seeing my plate.
That soup tastes looks so good.
Aha! Good. You know, I have leftover parsley. I'm just going to use it. And why not? And then I always like to drizzle with olive oil. So these are the chives, right? You can eat all of this, okay? So just to make sure. And since I do have the chives, I'm just going to, why not? This could go also on the soup, but, you know, this is fine. And then I'll drizzle with olive oil, and that's pretty much it. Here, just a little bit of, okay, angle it. Boom. This is optional, but I do like fat. So, even on this side. Okay, so did I just make a mess of that? Maybe that wasn't a great idea. We'll spread it out then. Yeah, sometimes the wacky ideas don't always work out, but that's okay because then, you know, in future, oh, that's not bad actually. Then I have the wavy thing. And pepper. Pepper. Pepper, 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 pepper. Okay. All right. So that's it for my end. I want to see who else did I not see? And I'm just going to put this up close. It's ready. All right, let's see.
This is my soup. This is Meredith.
Where's Meredith? Ooh,
pretty.
Nice. Is that a yogurt that you put that's floating on top?
I used sour cream because I didn't have plain yogurt.
That's totally fine. So, you know, it has that same thick consistency and the tart. Beautiful. Have you tried it yet?
Yes. The kids, it has passed the kid test now.
Oh, okay. All right. Good to know. Kid approved.
My son said it tasted like one of the restaurants we like, so that was good.
Of course, right? And it's homemade. Okay, anyone else I missed before I wrap up?
I have my frittata that's uncooked in the pan here. It's like not finished yet.
Is this David? Who am I?
Oh, that's Sandy.
Sandy, can I see? Wait,
This is what's in the pan.
Oh, pretty.
And I haven't done anything with the soup. It's still sitting waiting for dinner time.
Yeah. You don't have to plate that until.
Good, it tastes great.
But your frittata looks actually. Wait, did you brown it yet? Not yet.
No, not yet.
So it's ready. That looks like it's gonna be.
It'd be good if
you can already see what it looks like.
I don't mess it up.
No, you won't mess it up. Make sure you're watching the broiler. Okay, anyone else that I missed? Ooh, who is this? David. I see snippets of.
Yeah, that is a little bit. We didn't have yogurt and
Is that you? David, are you showing me something or? I see the soup. It almost looks like squash. Wow. Wow, that's a beautiful bright orange.
Yeah, that was really, I think we added a lot of tomatoes. We didn't have paste, so we added Italian seasoning.
Wait, sorry, can you speak closer to your mic because I'm hearing more ambient noise.
so we added Italian, what's it called?
Italian meal maker paste.
Italian meal maker paste from Asda. We added that instead of tomato paste because we didn't have it.
I'm sorry, you.
So I think that's why it's so orange.
What is it again that you added?
It's from Asda in Scotland.
Instead of tomato paste, then it's kind of tomato paste plus some Italian herbs.
Oh, kicked it up a notch, didn't we? That's great. Actually, I wish we had that here. That sounds amazing.
And then I think we got something wrong with our eggs. I think we added way too much milk. So we ended up just sort of scrambling eggs, and we couldn't broil it anyway, so we just have some scrambled eggs and pepper. But we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, okay. So then you had scrambled eggs, and then next time you know how to make it more frittata-ish, right?
Yeah, I think it's like, I think we added like a cup of milk, and I think it was meant to be like a couple of tablespoons of milk.
Okay. Yeah, the milk is just to make it creamier. That might be a lot. Unless you had like 20 eggs, then maybe a cup of milk.
No, we did not.
All right. Hey, always
you.
Good to that's how we all learn, right? Now we know in future.
Yeah.
Did I miss anyone else?
I finally got a Parmesan crisp.
Okay, Jennifer, what did you do differently?
I used parchment paper and just put a little olive oil on instead.
Okay, so it did need more because mine was oozing oil. Like that's why I had to put it in a paper towel because it was just so much oil.
It was very oily too, but for some reason it stuck. But I got it the second time, so.
Okay, so parchment paper, and if you have a chance, silicone mats are really, really easy. Plus, it's reusable all the time. And
I'll have to invest in some.
Yeah, makes a cleanup of your tray so much easier because anything that sticks to your tray means you're gonna have to be rubbing, and with a silicone mat, it's like easy. Okay, so looks like we have everyone. So guys, this is pretty much it. We're coming to the point where we have to part. And so I'm holding these classes all the way until June, except for next week. I'm gonna be on holiday. So I don't think I have the Wi-Fi where I'm going. So so basically no class next week. And I am so happy to have all of you cook with us, and for all the new faces, nice to meet you. Nice to have representation in Europe. And don't forget, I'm sending an email a few days from now, just to wrap up this whole thing. I post photos on Facebook. And like us if you can. And if you are in a position to do so, we are trying to raise funds for Feeding America. So please do so. Again, optional. And on that note, from Greater Boston, I am Marlene. Let's cook, and thank you for being part of this class. Be safe and be well, and happy dinner.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.